I thought it was all material, financial stuff. And then as I progressed through everything, it became like full clarity that like freedom is what it's all about, and like control of my time and control of my money and control of where we get to go. And so I think goal setting and is the path to getting clarity, and, you know, trial and error over the first few years, and until I actually found out what was really true to me, and getting a real true clarity on what my North Star is, and why I'm doing it, and where I'm heading, and what does it mean for me in the end.
Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Richer Soul. Today's guest is Bryce Robertson, who came from the land down under to make his dreams come true in the United States of America. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life, to wake up energized, excited about the day, to have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want, to be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and bring balance to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com. While you're there, you can sign up for a monthly email where I share the best articles I read this month, let you know about upcoming episodes, and share a little wisdom. You can also listen to coaching calls under the Coaching Calls tab. I also share the most interesting articles I read every week on Facebook at facebook.com/Richer Soul. And there's also a Facebook group where you can ask questions and interact with other listeners. Today's quote is from Rick Kane. 95% of all financial history happens within 2 standard deviations of normal. And everything interesting happens outside of 2 standard deviations. We're definitely in interesting times and market conditions. Regardless of what's happening in the world, people still have to invest. And as we'll learn with our guest today, America is one of the easiest places in the world to do that and to create success. Let's not forget our action step from last week. Asking the question, what if I'm wrong with the financial decisions I'm making? And that comes back to, what will you do if we have financial panic in the markets again? How will you behave? I encourage you to go back and listen to episode 60 with Dr. Daniel Crosby on the laws of wealth and how we are wired to behave badly with money, so that you can understand those human emotions and how to overcome them. As you know, I'm an immigrant to the USA. I built my wealth through working, real estate, and business. And I always wonder why more Americans don't take advantage of the opportunities that we have. And as you know, it's not about the money alone. But what the money does is allow us the freedom to live life on our terms. Of course, you have to know what you want. And I'm shocked and dismayed to say most people don't. They haven't thought through what do they really want, tested it out, and made sure that it's in line and right with what they want to do. So if you're like most Americans who aren't thrilled to wake up in the morning and live your life, then you're probably one of those people. And so you got to change. We'll talk about that a little bit today with our guest. He's going to share his journey around the world and finally to America. Bryce Robertson is a real estate investing entrepreneur, syndicator, educator, best-selling author, world traveler, and adventurer. He's your Australian real estate mate. With over 20 years of experience in large commercial construction projects, real estate and business, he's traveled to over 60 countries, over 6 continents, expanding wisdom and prosperity. Through operating businesses in 5 countries over 3 continents, Bryce realized firsthand the abundant opportunity that exists here in the mighty US of A. Bryce began his investing career with a net worth of negative $50,000. Yep, negative $50,000, no credit, and only $2,000 in the bank. Now Bryce is a full-time investor, syndicator, and educator, having raised millions and a culmination of success in mobile home park investing. Bryce is humbled to have realized the fruits of financial freedom and how to live a true freedom lifestyle. Consequently, Bryce is committed to helping others create their own self-designed freedom lifestyle through his education platform. Let's meet our guest. Welcome to Rich Your Soul, Bryce Robertson. It's great to have you join us today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Rocky.
And I'm excited to learn from you today. We always like to start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
That's a great question. I didn't really learn much about money when I was growing up. I mean, school certainly didn't teach us anything. There was some sort of savings program they had where you can, put a couple of dollars in the bank and then you watch the interest raise at a really, really low rate in your bank account. So I suppose there was a tiny little bit of financial education there. My parents taught me how to budget. That was pretty cool, and that kind of helped me a little bit. They told me how definitely not to live beyond my means, and they told me to save my money. And so I became pretty good at like fundamental money management on a really, really basic level. And I definitely got taught that. But it wasn't until like later on in life that I realized that a lot of what I'd learned relating to money was really just like bad programming.
So let's dig into that. What were some of those things that you learned that were bad programming?
No, I didn't even know at the time, but there was a lot of different people saying a lot of different things about money, like, money doesn't grow on trees. We can't afford that. We don't have money for that. Beggars can't be choosers, and like all of these like sayings that I don't believe that the people that were saying them actually meant ill intentions. They just had bad programming themselves, and they were passing on that programming, and it kind of set in. So, I probably even looked at wealth when I really, really analyzed that. I even though as an adult I wanted to be financially free, I wanted to have these goals in making a lot of money. I had a lot of things that were really conflicting with that. And I probably looked at wealth in a bit of a negative way, like, wealthy people are bad people and they're greedy and all this kind of stuff. So as an adult, I had to go through and really pull out all the weeds and get rid of all of that.
So what was it that caused that turning point for you to question that?
It was actually when I first started exploring becoming financially free, I came across a book by T. Harv Eker called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. And that book is basically about teaching you how wealthy people think and successful people think, and it allows an opportunity for us to self-analyze where we're at, what programming we had through our culture, through our school, through our peers, through our parents, through media, and everything as we grew up. And then the next step is an opportunity to go back in there. Like the first half of the book talks about, what mindset principles that wealthy people have. The second part of the book is really about digging into 17 different ways that we can improve our mindset and actually pulling out the weeds and physically doing wealth exercises through the book. And so that I came out of the book a completely changed man.
How long did that process take? I mean, do you just read the book and within a month you're a whole different person, or was it a longer process?
Well, it definitely started a new direction for me. And so in the beginning, it was a massive shift in the beginning, and I noticed a lot of change immediately. But then it gave me a lot of awareness. There was a lot of things that came up shortly after I read the book where I'm like, no, that thought doesn't support positive wealth. That's not a good thing to be. I caught myself saying things that were contradictory to success and wealth. And I had to, go back and, I suppose it's kind of like maintaining a garden. You can get yourself set up in the beginning, but then you have to go back and you have to, do a bit of pruning and take a few weeds out here and there. And it would have taken me, I think, probably 12 to 18 months until I had really internalized having a proper wealth mindset. And a lot of it was, realize in the beginning, it was realizing what I was doing that was contradictory to my goals and in success. And then just training myself to eliminate those one by one.
And it is a process. It takes time, and you've got to do a lot of self-reflection and constantly catch yourself. So congratulations for doing the work. It's not so easy. A lot of people don't continue to keep going.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, one of the things that helped me is that my wife and I went through this journey together. So if it wasn't me being honest, calling myself out, my wife would be able to say, hey, I don't think that thing's supporting us, or how about we stop saying this, or and so we kind of went through the journey together and held each other accountable. And I think that would have allowed us to speed track it a little bit and get a bit more momentum there as well. Good support system at home.
And so that's the question that does come up a lot of times is, what do you do when your wife is, or, either way, your spouse is not on board with the new way of looking at things?
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that would be a pretty challenging process. I've been fortunate enough that my wife's been on board the whole way with our self-development and improvement and entrepreneurship. I mean, we've had our own businesses. We have success in our own businesses. But even in the beginning, when we were goal setting, we would go and set our goals for the year. And I would set my goals and she would set her goals. And we weren't talking about it in the beginning. It was just like, hey, here's my goals. Here's your goals. Cool. We know what we want. Let's go for it. We didn't even think to cross-check our goals with each other to see if there was going to be any conflicts. And, interestingly, my goals were, hey, I'm going to work 24 hours a day and have no time for anything else. I'm going to spend that much time on success. And one of her goals was hey, we need to have, a couple of nights a week where we're doing something special together. And we didn't cross-check that in the first year that we set goals. And there was a big conflict there and difference there in just the direction that we were heading and the approach that we were going to have along the way. And so, as we progressed, we ended up setting our goals together. I set my goals, she sets her goals, and then we check with each other, and then we sort of harmonize in the middle and rationalize in areas that we need to adjust.
And that's an important part of the thing, is to have the conversation back and forth between the two of you and to make sure that it all does fit together. You can't be married in silos, right? You have to be together and you have to support each other. And so that's an important part of that. And I think a big part of that is just having the conversations. What are your goals? I don't know how many people have those conversations with their spouses and dig into them and then make sure that they are on the same page and working together.
Mm-hmm.
You grew up in Australia. Is culture different there around money than in the United States?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, I did grow up in Australia. I think the most important difference culturally in Australia is the general outlook on life. I mean, I think we're pretty familiar with what the typical American dream is in America. Go to school, go to college, go to university, get married, work your butt off, have kids, and then retire when you're 60. In Australia, there's a little bit of a different perspective to looking towards life. And that's weekends and, holiday time and vacation time and like time off work is really important. So there's like a super strong work ethic, but if it's a public holiday, then like you've got like hardly any chance that anyone's going to want to go to work. That's going to be a long weekend where people are going to go camping up the beach or having fun. So I think the work ethic and the financial way of looking at things in Australia is to get down, do a lot of hard work, and there's also a lot of do it yourself sort of mindset in Australia, which I think creates a bit of a different landscape than in America. For example, when I first moved to America and living in Southern California, like nobody washes their car. Nobody washes their car there because there's, people from Mexico that are going to be like washing cars or cleaning people's houses or mowing their lawn and all of these different services where you can get at different price points that can help you out through your busy day because you're working the whole time. Whereas in Australia, like most people mow their own lawn, most people wash their own car, most people do it yourself. So I think there's because, in Australia, at least not yet, I don't believe that there is any sort of different tiers in costs of labor. Like you're paying a premium price for anything that you get done. There is no like premium, middle and lower price point to get your house painted or anything like that. So I think a lot of people do it themselves. And from an entrepreneurial perspective, I think that really slows us down from, outsourcing and we try and do it all ourselves. So I think there's generally a pretty good mindset in Australia towards wealth. But then I don't think that many people can really believe that being extremely successful is super possible.
So they have limiting beliefs on what the upper end is.
Yes, I believe so.
Now, you've been to a lot of other countries as well, right? Could you share a little bit about what you've learned traveling and some of the different things that you've seen from a money mindset and also just in general mindsets?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've been fortunate to travel to about 60 countries. I've done a lot of traveling overseas, a lot of long trips, full immersion in cultures, living in different countries for, years on end. And I suppose from a business perspective, I've seen that the barriers of entry in most other countries, like, even Australia, the UK, Canada, countries in Europe, South Africa, a lot of countries to get involved in business or to get involved in a real estate investment or purchase property or to be an entrepreneur, you have to have a lot more money to start off with. And the barriers of entry are a lot higher when compared to America. When I came to America and realized, wow, this really is the land of opportunities. This really is a country that's set up for people to have their own business, to invest in real estate, to buy properties, to do whatever entrepreneurial things they want to do. And it's to do that in Australia or the UK or other countries. For example, in real estate, if you want to buy a property, you have to have 20% down. Like there's no real ways about that. They don't have these first-time home buyer, 3.5% down programs or anything like that. It's like 20% down, and then you have to pay like stamp duty and taxes. And so like to get each property, you're looking at like a much higher buy-in cost, and that's going to limit you to getting much less properties if you can even get your first one started, which is a challenge right now that people are having, that people have been having in Australia and the UK. It's like people can't even buy their first home because they can't afford the massive down payment because house prices are so high and the buy-in is so high. Whereas in America here, there's amazing programs. There's, seller financing, 3.5% down, 5% down, like different programs. It's really set up for business. And when people come from different countries, come to America that say America is the land of opportunities, it really, really is. And then I suppose from a personal perspective or just cultural perspective, you know what you know because of what you've been surrounded by when you're growing up and what programming's happened. And if I grew up in India, I would have a completely different perspective on life as if, my experience when I grew up in Australia, because they have a different culture there. So when you get to travel, when I've got to travel, I can take a bit of the cultural ways from certain countries, and I can pick and choose. And so I've really weeded out a lot of different ways of thinking that I didn't feel suited me, that I had learned or that had been part of my programming in Australia, and I've replaced them with some things that I've learned in different countries. Like I'll go to the UK and I'm like, hey, I like that thing that these guys do here. That's a really cool social thing, or a really cool cultural thing. And there's, something like that in just about every country. So there was a lot of amazing things that I had from Australia and from growing up in that country that I've kept. And then I got rid of the things that I didn't feel were serving me as, being a best fit. And I've taken on some of those from other countries and a mixed match. And, I've lived in America now for over 10 years, and there's a lot of really amazing things that I've taken on from America as well. And it's just, the more we travel, the more we see different perspectives, and I can pick and choose what I think is the best fit for me.
And that requires a certain amount of intentionality and thinking through it to say, I want this instead of that, and making those changes. You seem to be very good at implementing. Do you think that's normal for most people?
Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Probably not. Most people probably don't implement, but then most people probably don't travel to 60 countries too. So, in the beginning, when I went to countries, it was like in the beginning, the first 6 weeks, you notice all the cool stuff about the place. Like, oh, this is so cool. I've never seen this in Australia. This is awesome. This is so amazing. And then after being there for about 3 months, you're like, hey, there's like some things here that aren't as cool as the country I just came from. And like, here's some annoyances of this country. But you kind of have to really be out there and traveling for a while I did anyway. It took me a while for all of that to really set in, and for me to really notice the differences, and for me to consciously choose what I'm going to keep and what I'm going to implement to be new. So I think it's just more of a purpose choice for me to implement things, because we live our life and we get to choose the quality of our life, I believe. And if I think something's going to be valuable for me, I will just implement it. I don't see any other choice.
And that's very true. I find that most people don't spend that much time thinking about things as you have. And so it's always interesting to learn how people go about doing that.
I think part of that could actually be because I've got outside of the normal cultural programming. Because if I was just in normal cultural programming and I didn't leave Australia, I would probably be heavily influenced by Australian media and like all the common things that people are saying around me, at my work or down the bar or something like that. But when I've gone out and traveled and seen the different perspective, I've broken outside of the normal communication that people get from the things that they see on social media and normal media, and allowed me an opportunity to have a completely different perspective on things. And as far as implementation, it's like if I've learned something that's really valuable, or if there's something that I think that needs to be changed, if it's important to me enough, then it'll be on my mind, and I'll be calling myself out every time I'm not in alignment with it. And I suppose I'm putting some pressure on myself psychologically to get rid of the things that don't serve me or bring in the things that do serve me. My mind doesn't allow it to just to forget about it and be okay with it.
It's impressive. So you wrote the book, 10,000 Miles to the American Dream. Why did you decide to write the book?
That's an interesting question. So I'm a co-author of the book. There's actually 8 of us authors, and we are all Australians. And we didn't actually know each other in Australia. We met over here in America, and we had all came over to America on our own accords to come to the land of opportunities and really benefit from the abundant opportunities and success that exists here. And we each have created financial freedom through real estate investing through different methods. I'm a mobile home park investor. Other co-authors are multifamily apartment investors. We've got single family turnkey guys. We've got real estate technology guys, and a variation. So we're a pretty mixed up group. And we originally got together to have a mastermind group where we jump on monthly calls. We talk about what's going on, what deals we've got going on. You know, we talked through a couple of challenges we were having, and different guys brought different perspectives to the table and helped solve problems. We also ended up doing deals together. And then we ended up meeting up down in San Diego, all in person, because we kind of spread out all over the US. And when we met up, all of us had such a burning desire to talk about the abundant opportunity that exists in America, investing in real estate, and that like other countries didn't compare to this. And then we're just like, wow, we all really feel really strongly about this, and we feel we got to put this message out there and let people know, because if you grow up in America and you haven't had the experience of going to different countries and seeing what the barriers of entry to being an entrepreneur or being a real estate investor is like in different countries, then you've got nothing to compare it to. You only know what's here, and everybody's been saying, yeah, America's the land of opportunities, but if you don't have tangible experience, then you know, how would you really know how much of an amazing opportunity it is? And so we felt really strongly about that message. And so we wanted to put that on paper and get it out there and be able to shake up the people in America and say, hey, like this opportunity, it's amazing. And like it doesn't exist in other places that we've been to in the world. And we want you to be able to benefit from it and take advantage of it, because we feel that there's like quite a few people in America that are mesmerized by, you know, all of the different sports and all of the different movies and the culture and not actually taking advantage of the abundant opportunities that exist in real estate and investing in the US. And so we're kind of like shaking people up to say, hey, it really is amazing. Give it a go. Give it a try.
And that's very true, because one of the unique things of the United States is the ability to get a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. And a lot of other countries don't have that ability. I mean, even Canada, I don't think even has that ability. You get much shorter terms or much more variable interest. And so that creates a whole nother level of risk that essentially doesn't exist in the United States. They've made it very, very easy for people to invest in real estate. And that's probably why so many people have used this path to build wealth in America.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and even like mobile home parks, there is no mobile home parks in Australia. You know, that asset class doesn't exist. I believe that in addition to the barriers of entry, there's also so many different ways so many different niches or niches in real estate and so many different ways to make money that there's abundant choices in America. It's really exciting.
And that's very true. I don't think people realize how many different ways there are to make money with real estate in the U.S. You're talking about a category that we haven't talked about at all on the show, which is mobile home parks. I think, though, a lot of people probably have preconceptions about mobile home park investing and about what's involved and the type of tenants and what it's really like. But I know that you do it. And in the book, you talk about how the misconceptions are all incorrect. Could you share a little bit about that? Yeah,
I mean, even in the beginning, when I heard about mobile home park investing, you know, I probably thought in my mind trailer park investing, because, mobile home parks, trailer parks, and then all of the things that I associated with that, like, Eminem growing up in a trailer park and having like a rough life, and the Trailer Park Boys, and, a lot of people on Jerry Springer and all this kind of stuff. And there has been a negative connotation that's tied to mobile home parks or trailer parks in the past, because there have been slumlord landlords in mobile home parks and run down assets and run down mobile home parks. But the interesting thing that's happened is over the last 20 years, especially over the last 10 years and a lot over the last 5 years, people like myself have been coming in and improving these mobile home parks and making them become more professionally operated, more professionally run, more professionally managed, cleaning them up, making them nicer, spending money on capital improvements, and really cleaning up the industry and cleaning up mobile home park space. And so it used to be an area that was owned, most mobile home parks were owned by mums and pops. And, when you buy off a mum and pop, a lot of them don't have the financials together. Some of them don't even have a profit and loss. They're not doing accounting. They've got mixed bank accounts where they've got business running through with their personal expenses and all this sort of stuff, and they haven't been running a mobile home park professionally. And then we come in and we clean that up, and we end up running it like a smooth oil machine and like a professional business, and that's happened all over America. And as that's happened, a lot of lenders have jumped on board. Warren Buffett's jumped on board in the mobile home space, where he purchased Clayton Homes back in, I think it was 2011, 2013. He bought Clayton Homes, and he brought out different financing programs for mobile homeowners and park owners. And there's just a lot of amazing things that have happened. A lot of Fannie and Freddie have jumped on board with financing programs. Section 8's jumped on board to be able to have programs where Section 8 can actually go towards the purchase of a mobile home, not just renting a mobile home and paying for the lot rent. And so there's a lot of amazing things that have happened since then. The industry's really changed, and the days of talking about trailer parks and having that negative connotation, they're over. It's a proven, successful real estate asset class. Really low turnover, high stability, low default rate on loans, and there's a really limited supply. And I think that you would agree with me, Rocky, that the need for affordable housing in America right now is just probably one of the biggest real estate problems right now.
And that's true. Housing is probably our number one expense, and trying to cut that is always helpful. And I think it depends where in the country you are. I know you were talking about Southern California, which is one of the highest cost of living areas. There's other parts of the country that are also extremely expensive. And yet there's other parts of the country that are far more reasonable, but people all feel stuck, like they have to live in a particular place. And if enough people feel that way, then costs skyrocket. So I'd like to just dig in a little bit more about how this works. So if you're investing in a mobile home park, who actually owns the mobile home itself?
Oh, that's a good question. There's really two types of owners of a mobile home. There's the tenant that owns the mobile home. And when the tenant owns the mobile home and the mobile home is in a mobile home park, then all of the tenant has to do is just maintain their home, keep it looking good, maintain the lot that they have their mobile home on, and then they pay lot rent to the landlord or the park owner. And really what they're paying lot rent for is because the park owner has the infrastructure in place. They've got the roads and the water and the sewer lines and the electricity that's being supplied there. And the lot rent is basically paying for that developed lot and the right to have their home there. So it's a pretty low cost. And for a tenant-owned home, paying lot rent, the average lot rent in affordable housing right now in America is somewhere around about $300 a month. So that's like really affordable housing. The other type of home ownership is where the tenant doesn't own the home and the park owns the home, and that's called a park-owned home. Now, it's a little bit different because the tenant is going to have to pay for lot rent. They're also going to have to pay some type of rent or payment towards the home as well, because they don't own it. Maybe they're paying it off on a rent credit program, or maybe they're just straight up renting it. Now, that means additional income for the park owner. It also means additional expenses for the tenant, but it changes the way that the actual home is taken care of in most circumstances. As you can imagine, if someone's a tenant, if they have a tenant-owned home, they own the home. They're responsible for the repairs. So they're going to have a lot higher of a pride of ownership in the home. And so we often see that tenants who own their home, the houses are immaculate. They're like super nice, looked after really well, lots of pride in ownership, because if they don't maintain it, they're going to have to pay for it. Whereas park-owned homes, if the tenant's not fully engaged in long-term ownership, then they're less inclined to really care about, taking care of the home. It's just kind of like, even if you lend somebody tools, if you use your own tools, you take care of them. And when you lend your tools out to other people, sometimes they come back a bit dinged up. And people just don't take care of things if it's not theirs in the way that they would if it's theirs. So we see a bit of a difference there in the pride of ownership. And, there's also quite a bit of management and capital that gets put into maintaining park-owned homes. We have a higher turnover rate. We have more repairs and maintenance because the park is actually responsible for repairing those homes if there's any damages, and sometimes tenants can actually go as far as wanting to damage the home if they're being evicted because they didn't pay rent, because they want to get some sort of revenge or something like that. So then we're going to come in and pick up the pieces afterwards. So it's profitable to have park-owned homes or tenant-owned homes. But as long as the park owner or landlord takes into consideration that you are going to have to put a little bit of extra money into it, even though it's still profitable, it's a lot more maintenance, it's a lot more management, and you're going to put a lot more time into managing park-owned homes as well.
And that's very true. And I think the same thing comes, and that's why a lot of people are afraid of rentals, is because they don't want to deal with bad renters. And a lot of that comes down to the type of rental it is. What type of neighborhood are you in? What's the quality of your tenant? And all of those factors go into place. And I think a lot of times, especially for people who aren't involved in real estate, they don't realize how important the quality of your tenant is as to how much trouble you're going to have to deal with. So a Class C property is going to have a lot more tenant problems than a Class A or a Class B property. And so there needs to be higher margins there to be able to deal with that. And you also have to be the type of person who can deal with it, or hire somebody to handle it for you, because otherwise you're going to struggle. I think that's one of the big things. And we really didn't talk about this. If you're going to be a real estate investor, there are so many different ways to invest. But the first thing to do is look at yourself and say, what kind of person am I? What are my skill sets? What am I good at? And what am I willing to do and put up with? Or who can I have on my team to be able to do that? And I think that's the other thing people don't realize is when you get involved in real estate, you need to build a team. And I think you probably concur. Do you have a team around you to help you run your properties?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And actually, John Carney wrote a chapter about that in our book about how to build an A-team. But yeah, having a team is super important. And the quality of our team is going to depend on the quality of how operations are run and our results. So it's super important. We in mobile home parks, we actually we sort of self-manage off-site. So we take care of the overseeing of operations off-site, and we have on-site staff. So we have on-site managers, on-site maintenance. Sometimes, depending on the size of the park, it could be a combination of both. And, we have accounting, we have legal, we have a whole team taking care of things. We've got our lenders. there's so many people involved in a real estate transaction, let alone a commercial real estate transaction that's been managed for years on end, that having an important team is super essential.
And you've got to almost build your team, or at least have them in place before you begin, because otherwise you're going to struggle when things come up and you don't know what to do, or you make the wrong decisions up front because you didn't know about something, and that creates even more trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good to have backups too. You know, when I'm buying a mobile home park, I'll have my frontline contractors that I would like to choose to be my go-to contractors. I have my go-to plumbing contracting company, my go-to electrician, my go-to carpenters, my go-to for sort of everything. But I like to have at least 2, if not more, backups for every type of craft out there, because if the first plumber's not available and you got a water leak, not only do we need to get that fixed, we're losing water every second. And, in a 200 space mobile home park, that can be thousands and thousands of dollars that we're losing. So we want to have a good team in place, select that up front. And then we also want to have some backups and plan B and C and D, and really make sure that we're covering all bases.
And that's very true. Today's episode is sponsored by Profit Answer Man Podcast. Did you know that most small business owners hate looking at their financials? It's one reason they may struggle with business success. The Profit Answer Man Podcast helps them ensure they are profitable and can pay their employees and weather the storms we all have to face. It's built on the Profit First methodology of pay yourself first. The Profit Answer Man Podcast is a must listen to for every small business owner and anyone who wants to help them survive and thrive. Check it out on your favorite listening platform. Just out of curiosity, who takes care of most of the landscaping in the mobile home parks? Do the owners themselves do it, or does the mobile home park do most of the landscaping?
Yeah, so the tenants are responsible to maintain their lot. So they have to make sure that the grass doesn't grow too long, that there's no random items out in the yard. They have to have clean skirting around their house. And so the tenants are responsible for maintaining their lot, their yard. Then for any of the vacant lots or any of the common areas or for the roads, the park owner, the landlord, is responsible for those areas as well. So it comes down to, what vacant lots do you have? What common areas do you have? The entrance and things like that. That's all going to be the park owner.
How often do properties turn over in tenant-owned mobile homes? Do they sell them very often?
No, I mean, the retention rate of people staying is really, really high. We have really low turnover. I would say it would be, depending on the park and the demographics, it would be anywhere between 1% to 3% of the tenant base would be turning over each year. There's usually a bit of an initial cleanup in the beginning when we take over a park. We evict all the non-paying tenants and all the troublemakers, and then we see a really good stability. So even though mobile homes are technically mobile and they can be transported and moved to another location, they also are kind of flimsy homes. We don't really want to be moving them around too much and putting that kind of stress on them structurally. At the same time, it takes a tenant to about $4,000 to $8,000 to move and relocate a mobile home. So usually if someone's going to move out, if they don't get evicted, which would be misfortunate, if they're choosing to move out, then they would usually just sell their home to somebody else, and then we'd have to qualify that person, and then they would just buy another home at another mobile home community. But we really don't see much of a turnover. It's great stability compared to multifamily apartments. It's absolute light years apart. I think multifamily apartments have something like 40% turnover each year.
That's a lot of turnover.
That's a lot of turnover. That's a lot of remodeling and turnover and management. We don't have that in the mobile home park space.
And I think that's the one thing people don't realize is every time you turn over a unit, there's a tremendous amount of money that goes into cleaning, touch up, repairs, and they don't always factor that into their business plans and realize how much of a cost that is. That's why I always like, once I get a tenant in place, I don't want them to move out. Stay here as long as you want, and I make the renewal process super easy so that I don't have to deal with the turnover. Makes life easy. So what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see people make with real estate?
With real estate? I think one of the biggest mistakes up front is mindset. Thinking that you need to have money, experience, good credit, and all of that under your belt. Like in the beginning, I had a negative net worth. I had $2,000 in the bank, and I had unseasoned credit. And I ended up being able to get a $600,000 mobile home park across the finish line. So I think in the beginning, mindset is huge. There's a lot of people out there that are cashed up with a bunch of money that want to get involved in deals. And if you can go out and find a deal and learn the ropes and get mentored to do that, then you can put deals together. And so there's a lot of opportunities to do joint ventures with people and get involved. You don't have to do it all yourself. Investing is a team sport. A lot of people out there could be involved in a real estate deal right now, and they don't believe that they can. So that's one thing. I think another thing is having some success in a strategy in real estate investing or an asset class or a niche in real estate investing, and then going and translating all of that success and moving that over into a different asset class and thinking you're going to be just as successful. We have a lot of people coming from the self-storage and multifamily space and even single family space coming over to mobile home parks, and I see them applying the evaluation methods that they would have used in their previous asset class or niche and trying to apply them to mobile home parks. And it just doesn't work like that. So make sure that if you are getting involved in something, you need to get educated on that specific type of investment model so that you know that you're doing all the right things to avoid the pitfalls and maximize profits.
What's the best way for people to get educated?
I mean, myself, I like to go to live events or take home study courses. There's a lot of them out there. I've actually created both live events and home study courses for mobile home park investing and also how to raise capital for real estate. But, you can go online and you can search and you can find out, Bigger Pockets is also a great resource for getting educated for real estate investors. I actually blog on there about mobile home park investing, but I believe that's America's #1 online educational resource for real estate investing. And it covers all of the different niches, and there's blogs on there, there's podcasts on there. And then another way to get educated on real estate is to go down to your local real estate investment group. And you can just go on meetup.com and type in real estate groups in your area. And then you can, they usually have a monthly meeting, and then different speakers will speak on different topics. And if someone comes there and they speak on a topic that you're interested in, then, you could maybe get educated through them, or, talk to the meetup leaders and see if they know anybody who can put you in the right direction of learning the thing that you need to learn. And there's a lot of education out there, and, do a little bit of research to make sure that you're getting educated by someone who's actually successful. But, right now there's a lot of people at home. I think home study courses is a really good thing to get into. A lot of online trainings out there.
That there are. I'm a big fan of Bigger Pockets, and we've had some of their other writers on the show in the past. I think it's probably one of the best places where you can get educated and you don't have to spend a lot of money. A lot of their stuff is free. I think they have some premium content as well, and they also have podcasts and everything else. And I've been a big fan of the information that they have out there. And then I do have a local meetup group that I go to here. Again, people are very open, very sharing. If you're willing to show up and listen, then there are tremendous opportunities out there. But you do have to watch who you're listening to, because there are people who don't have the right information. So you've kind of double check your sources and make sure it's right and make calculated decisions.
Yeah.
You talked about masterminds a bit. How have masterminds helped you?
Yeah, definitely helped me a lot. I can come up with some solutions to problems, but it's interesting, like I could even bring a child in on the mix on a problem that I'm having, and a child is going to have a different perspective to me, and they're going to probably figure out maybe even an easier way to solve a problem or come up with an amazing idea, because they're looking at a completely different perspective, and they probably want to do it the easiest way possible. And I'm probably trying to overcomplicate it. And so when we get together and we mastermind and we talk to somebody else, talk to one person, a mastermind of two people, that's the smallest mastermind you could have. And it's almost like a third person gets created out of putting two minds together, because we have so many different perspectives coming from two people that new ideas get created. And then when we have a group of 5, 10, 8 people, it's so powerful. I've never really been involved in anything that produces so much creativity and productivity as mastermind groups.
And that they do, because everyone has a different opinion, and you get to hear them all. And sometimes you need to take the feedback. That's one of the things. You have to be willing to take the feedback. Sometimes people aren't willing to listen, but you have to be willing to listen. And also, as part of the mastermind group is also you have to be willing to give. It's not a one-way show all the time. You've got to show up and do that. And so you've got to work on that. And people can build their own mastermind groups. There's paid mastermind groups. There's a multitude of ways to get involved in that. Do you think real estate is for everyone?
Do I think real estate is for everyone? I think that everyone would benefit from being involved in real estate. I don't know if everyone would want to do it full time or anything like that, but I think everyone would benefit from having at least, one real estate investment or being invested in real estate. But there's 3 main ways we can make money out there, and that's the stock market, real estate, or owning your own business. And so maybe real estate isn't the exciting thing for every entrepreneur. So there's a lot of options out there, and I would highly recommend that everybody gets involved in real estate, even if it's not their main thing that they're doing financially. It's definitely going to support their portfolio, or it's going to support them as an entrepreneur.
And that it is. And as you said, there are 3 paths to wealth. One is owning your own business. The other is real estate. The last is the paper assets through the stock market and so forth. I find it funny because I think people think that the stock market is the least risky, but many times it's one of the most risky. Owning your own business is probably one of the least risky if you do it right. And it's also the one that can give you the biggest opportunity to hit a grand slam in life, because a lot of business owners are not successful. A lot of business owners are highly successful. And I think a big part of that comes down to something that you mentioned earlier. You have to run your business like a business, whether it's real estate or being an entrepreneur. You have to look at your profit and loss statement. You have to look at the numbers, or you have to put somebody in place to do that for you. Because if you're not paying attention to the money, then you're going to end up in trouble. Not a good place to be. Are there some other areas that we should have talked about that you covered in your book that I didn't ask you about?
I think, the main thing about the book is just the sort of main message that we have in the book is if like some guys from Australia can come over and become financially free through investing in the US, in US real estate, like everybody here can do it. Like anybody who's listening to this podcast, if they've gone to the effort of listening to this podcast, then they have the capabilities to be able to do what they need to do to get involved in US real estate and to change their life so that they can take more control of their life financially, so they can have more freedom in their life. And that's the bottom line. That's what it's all about for me. It's all about living a freedom lifestyle. I mean, my wife and I, we spend about half of our time traveling nationally and internationally, doing all of the things that we love, outdoor adventures and nature, and we spend about half of our time working. And we absolutely love it. And our business grows, and I live a true freedom lifestyle, and it's absolutely amazing. And this is the lifestyle that I've chosen, that everybody else is out there has got a different life that is going to suit them. Maybe somebody wants to spend more time with their family, or wants to spend more time with their kids, or whatever. Like, everybody's got their dream out there that they want to live, the real dream, not the old American dream that got sold to us, the real dream. And only those individuals can actually come up with what it is for them. And real estate has been a way for all of us real estate mates. That's the name of us authors in our group. And all of us real estate mates, we live a freedom lifestyle, and we get to live this because of investing in real estate. And we just would wish that upon everybody else out there, so that they can truly live the life that they want to live.
And so you've said that. What does a freedom lifestyle mean to you?
To me, it's, in the beginning when I was setting goals, everything was set towards making money, and it was financial freedom was the first goal. And then, after investing in mobile home parks, and it took about 2.5 years for my wife and I to become financially free and retire ourselves from our previous careers and become full-time in real estate. And so, that was the first step. But then after that, we're like, okay, like, we're financially free. This is really cool. What's next? And so the next step for us was time freedom. We really wanted to have time freedom. So it's like, all right, we want to choose how much we're going to work. Sometimes we'll work like every day, 12 hours a day for a while, and then we'll take a couple of months off. And sometimes we'll work half a day here, half a day there. And it's completely up to us, and we get to choose that. So we have financial freedom. We also have time freedom as well. And then the third step for us was to have a location freedom, and to be able to do anything from anywhere at any point. And once we have like time freedom, location freedom, and financial freedom, I mean, it's literally up to us to just choose, like, how are we going to spend our day? We don't have to be concerned with money. We've got that taken care of. We don't have to be in any certain particular place at any time. We can go wherever we want, be with whoever we want, whenever we want, and we can control our time. So, I mean, I think time freedom, location freedom, and financial freedom give us the ability to live a freedom lifestyle. And then the only variable after that is like, how do you want to spend your time? What do you want to be doing?
And that's a question I think people need to answer for themselves, and take the time to do the deep work to come up with those answers of what do you want to be doing and how do you want to choose to live your life. And unfortunately, I find that people don't do that as much as they should. And that's part of what this is about, is encouraging people to understand their purpose and know what they want. And then, as you talked about, shifting their mindset to believing that more is possible, and then figuring out what it is for you, and then going ahead and doing it. Have you had coaches and mentors to help you as you've gone through the process?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so I mentioned before that it took us 2.5 years to become financially free. That's once we had already attained a bit of education and came up with a game plan. There was a bit of a pre-build-up a point to that, which was about 18 months of just insane immersion in coaches and mentoring and mastermind groups and going to live events and home study courses and reading books, and just we obsessed with figuring out the ways to crack the code. And getting involved in my first deals, and my first couple of deals, there's no way I would have had as much success or avoided as many pitfalls as I did if I didn't have mentors. So yeah, mentors have been very important part. And coaching has been a very important part of the whole process. It's I teach, I educate, but I also get educated and I get taught as well. And the more mentoring and coaching I'm getting, the more I can experience success in my life, and the more I can pass on too.
And that's very true. It's a constant improvement, and you constantly keep working on yourself and moving forward, and get help and do all of the work over time.
Mm-hmm.
It's time to learn the secrets of life. What's your secret to living an abundant life?
Mm-hmm. I would say a secret to living an abundant life is full clarity of knowing what my reason why is and what's like super important to me. And that comes down to proper goal setting and really just digging into what's super important. Because like in the beginning, I thought it was all material, financial stuff. And then as I progressed through everything, it became like full clarity that like freedom is what it's all about, and like control of my time and control of my money and control of where we get to go. And so I think goal setting and is the path to getting clarity, and, trial and error over the first few years and until I actually found out what was really true to me and getting a real true clarity on what my North Star is and why I'm doing it and where I'm heading and what does it mean for me in the end.
And that's very true. I've been through a similar process, and it takes time. And I take all my clients through that. Everyone has a life plan, because if you don't have a plan for your life, then you've got no plan. So I make sure that they all go through that process and figure out the clarity. And it takes time. This isn't something that happens overnight. You have to put the work and effort into it. What did you learn later in life that you wish you would have learned sooner?
Oh my God. I think the first thing was just like that being an entrepreneur is possible for me. Like I didn't know that in the beginning. I used to be a welder and steel fabricator for 17 years. And I thought that if I was going to do something, I had to do some kind of branch off that because I'd put so much hard work into it. And then I went to my first real estate meeting and found out that you can get involved in deals if you have no money experience or good credit. And it was just like game over after that. I just ended up becoming successful. So I wish I had have known. I wish it had have been instilled in me that I could be an entrepreneur and learn that earlier in my life. I mean, I would so much have loved to have started this earlier.
And that's a big part of it. Unfortunately, we don't teach kids that as much as we probably should, and help them understand there's so much opportunity out there and that the standard path is not necessarily the best path. And it's I call it American dream, American prison, if you decide to get stuck like that. Which brings up our final question is, if you were to give an 18-year-old one specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
It would be get clarity on what's important to you in your life and then do it. Like take action, learn how to take action towards that. Just do it. Like don't have a limiting belief that you have to fit into society and you have to go with the status quo. Like anything is seriously possible for you at the ripe age of like 18. You're ready to rock and roll. You're ready to like take on the world. And there's so much opportunity that exists here in America. Live the life that you want to live. Don't settle. Don't go, oh yeah, I'm going to do this because like I'm limited. No, you're not. You can do whatever you don't need money. You don't need experience. All you need is just to figure it out and then go out there, get a mentor, get a coach, and then go for it. And oh my God, like I look at 18-year-old people who invest in real estate and like they probably get sick of me telling them how awesome it is. It's like, just go out there and just take action. Like I wish I did, please do it for yourself. Live the life that you truly deserve to live, because you deserve to live that life of freedom.
And that is so true. If people would like to find you and connect and learn more about what you have to offer, what's the best way for them to do that?
Sure. One thing I'd like to offer to to the people listening to this podcast is, if you're interested in the ultimate goal template, just email me, Bryce at propertyworksusa.com. And that's BRYCE at propertyworks. Works ends with a Z or a Z, depending on which part of the planet you're listening in from. So it's Bryce at propertyworksusa.com. You can also check out propertyworksusa.com. I've got some free resources there. And I'm also just launching a podcast now called Freedom Hack Radio, teaching people how to live a freedom lifestyle. So keep an eye out for that on YouTube and on your favorite podcasting platform. That'll be releasing on May 1st.
And I will make sure to put the link to the website and to your email in the show notes, so it makes it easy for people to find it. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Rocky. It's been a pleasure.
What an awesome interview with Bryce. I'm going to close out with another quote. This one is from Mary Oliver. Tell me what it is you plan to do with your one wild and precious life. You got to ask yourself, if you're not living your dream life, why not? Bryce started with nothing. I started with nothing. Sure, it takes time, but it's possible. And the first step is to figure out what your dream life is. That's a major part of what I do with my clients. We use the Living Forward book by Michael Hyatt to create the life plan and get clarity on how we want every part of our life to look, and then we start working towards it. It's a lot easier than you think. And depending on where you're starting out, you may not be that far off from having your dream life. I've coached people from 18 years old on up to implement changes in their life. You've got to ask yourself, what's preventing you from moving forward, and who are you putting on your team to help build the life you deserve? Taking no action creates far worse outcomes in life than trying something and failing. I can help you achieve your goals through coaching and accountability. Just email me. We'll start with a short chat to see if we're a good fit. For many people, one session allows them to take a giant leap forward towards their dreams. If you're still listening, you must have liked the episode. So share it with a few friends. It can start a great conversation, and I'd appreciate it. I'd love to connect with you. There's a Facebook page and a Facebook group for Rich Your Soul. Stop by and say hi. You can always email me. It's rocky@richyoursoul.com, or there's even a scheduling link in the show notes to get on my calendar. I'd love to hear how you're doing and how the information I've shared has helped you. Thanks for listening. Have an abundant week.